Ebri main road, not too far from Accra, not too far from Efri, just enough for a hideout. Now this lovely facility is being run by an agency called Sphinx Property Consultant. Now they manage it, they keep the loans, they're in charge of security, they do everything. But I'm here to talk to them to find out what exactly they do. If I own this property and I came to see them, what would they do for me? If you want to hear more, come with me as I go and speak to Larry. Hello and welcome back to the show. I am here in Fury Village. Now this village is being managed by Sphinx Property Consultant, and I am talking to the technical director who's called Larry August. Larry, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Larry, with this sort of modern living, you know, instead of the proverbial Dansoman or North Kaneshie living, we're all beginning to live in like gated communities. And that's where Sphinx Property Consultant and Estate Management come in. Sure. I just need to know how the whole idea comes about. So if I own Fury Village and I came to you, what services do you give me?
Well, Sphinx does a number of things. We are in as property consultants. And when I say property consultants, I mean to say that we are going to offer a one-stop shop. If you come to Sphinx, we'll advise you on the value of a property. It could be the value for sales, it could be the value for letting.
Okay.
Whichever way you want it, we'll assist you to find a value for a property. After doing that, we'll also assist you to get a client. You will need a suitable client, not just anybody who will come and mess up a property. Somebody who we know who can trust and take care of the property.
So you vet the client in a way?
We will vet the client.
Okay.
And so shall we vet the landlord as well. We will want to make sure that the landlord is somebody who really owns the property. A lot of fakes in town. People come with, this is my property. They want to just take the rent from you right away.
Okay.
We will make sure that we view the title documents to the property. You are the landlord we are dealing with. You are a credible landlord. You can recommend to a credible tenant. That is the essential thing. Apart from doing sales and letting, there are also taxes that go along with every transaction in that property. If you have sold property, we want to advise you that there are various taxes that you have to pay. Capital gains tax. Many people don't know about it. That's fixed. We'd advise you. If you rent a house, there's rent tax that you have to pay. As Sphinx would advise you to look here, do not fall foul of the law. Just pay your taxes to the government and feel free. Just enjoy your occupancy. Like in Fury Village here, we have taken over this place to manage the property. Managing it means we are offloading the landlord's responsibilities of him. We want to make sure that we take care of the security aspect of it, the landscaping, general services are well maintained. That any tenant who comes in here, or anybody who buys property here, we just have to enjoy the community that he lives, knowing that he's not going to hassle for water, conservancy, the roads are well done, everything is well taken care of. While the landlord just be behind, enjoys his income.
So basically, you take all his worries or his troubles, and then you deal with it.
We deal with it. Managing on his behalf.
I mean, is it relatively new now? Estate sort of management in Ghana, is it?
Facilities management is now becoming a profession in Ghana. Hitherto, people used to want to do things themselves, but then now that we have professionals in the field, we want to look at certain things from a professional point of view. You want to make sure that things are not just done anyhow. But then if it has to be done, it has to be done well. We want to make sure that anything that we set out to do, once it's property related, it takes its course.
Now, normally, people who do, say, facilities management will be in charge of security and the loan, but I see you guys are doing the renting and the sales of it as well.
Just to add on to this aspect of facilities management, It's usually done when you have hospitals, schools, hotels, establishments that are difficult to run on a one-man show.
Okay.
That is when you want the expertise of a professional facilities management people.
Yeah.
But then nothing stops somebody who owns a single tenement, a single house, from saying that I'm traveling abroad. Can you take care of this property for me in my
I
absence?
see.
Yes. It's something that is coming up new. And just like estate agency in Ghana, everybody has found it a lucrative business. How many people are regarding it as a profession? It's not just a business. It is, there are people who are trained to do this aspect of it. We have various schools, universities who are training people in estate management to do what people who are looking for money are doing now. But we as Sphinx are saying that no, there has to be a stop to this thing. Anybody puts up a signboard over here, 2-bedroom for sale over here, and for sale over here, that kind of thing. No, this is what we are trying to discourage. Take the issue of pharmacies. Nobody can open a shop and say I'm selling drugs without there being a professional pharmacist in there. There has to be somebody, a time when all this business has to be regulated. Yes, and this is why Sphinx has come in as a professional institution that is going to manage property.
Larry, valuation. It's one thing that really fascinates me. I see a house in East Legon or I see a house in Awoshi. So what do? I call you and say, look, Larry, I've seen a house here and I want to evaluate it before I buy it or before I rent it out, or how does it work? What do you do for me then?
Sure. It's always best to be advised, to be guided. Because you can't just take, it's a seller's market, so truly. That anybody can say, I'm selling my house, I'm selling for 500,000 in Ghana City. But take it or leave it. The person selling should have sought advice as to how a fair market price at which you could sell a property. Otherwise, we shall be creating artificial values. If somebody goes to buy property that is way above the market value, you are creating at an artificial value. Because the next time somebody next door wants to sell a property, you say, but this person sold it for that price, so I'm also going to sell mine for that price. That is what we are trying to discourage. Now, somebody seeking valuation advice from Sphinx, we have a website. I think that if anybody seeking advice gets in touch with us, we would like to go and reference the property. Make sure that we are physically seeing the property, not behaving like armchair valuers who say, oh, where is your house? This is a 2-bedroom house. This place, get this value for it. No. We are also going to make sure that we look at your title documents to ascertain the kind of title that you have. Do you have a freehold? Do you have a leasehold? Some people sell property knowing perfectly well that their title is not good, or that their leasehold is about to expire. So they want to offload it onto somebody. Anybody wanting to go for such property has to be properly advised. We think that is why valuers are in the system. But of course the profession is not one. We have to project ourselves. So this is what Sphinx is trying to do now, to bring a professional touch to estate management.
In Fury Village here, literally just off the Adenta or Yarifa main road, you turn off and obviously it's a very serene environment. I see there's further development. So here you rent and you sell, or is this predominantly sales?
It's predominantly sale.
Predominantly sales.
Somebody could buy and decide to rent.
Okay.
But the owners of this property require that we sell their houses outright.
Okay.
Yes. As you can see, this is closest to the main road. This is the first phase of the development.
Okay.
There are 4 phases which are going to go to the west of us.
Okay.
And we'll get there when.
I see. So if I wanted to buy this place, I don't contact the agent. I come to Sphinx.
You will contact Sphinx, but we have a showroom here.
Okay.
Where we have an office.
Okay.
So that anybody wishing to buy any of the properties, each property has a different design.
I can see that.
A different
color, different feeling.
The essence is not to create monotony in the community.
Okay.
There has to be change. There has to be something that will make the place comfortable, worth living in. I believe that. Look at the roads.
It's all paved.
No potholes are going to drop in here. And you take a right. So we are selling houses over here.
I mean, let me divert a little bit. You know, feels more like you're living in America. You know, low fences, see-through fences. You know, you can see through your neighbor's house. Where, you know, we normally live in a house where you're like in a one prison. You know, your walls go 8 feet high for protection and everything. Your new neighbors, I mean, how are they adopting to, you know, this sort of openness?
I believe that anybody who would come here seeking to buy a house would have come to inspect the place.
And I must have loved it.
I must have loved it.
I'm not saying I don't like it, though. I do love it. I just want to find out if everybody else is thinking the same. There's a welcoming feeling about it. There's a welcoming feeling about it. So, like, I mean, I see the lawns are being kept and the garden is being tended, and that too falls under your...
Sphinx is managing this estate. This community is managed by Sphinx. We are taking care of the security, taking care of the landscaping, and at the end of the day, we are also going to make sure that all the external aspects of the building are well secured and painted when we ought to do so. Yes, there are certain responsibilities which, by law, fall on the landlord.
Okay.
The tenant is not supposed to bother himself with those things. And there are certain responsibilities which fall with living within the community, like collecting of service charges for various shared facilities and all those things. This is the responsibility of Sphinx. We just want to make sure that anybody living in there will just pull this out. Just pay what you are entitled to do, and then you leave it to Sphinx. You take care. I'm happy that you mentioned that the lawns are well cut.
Yes. I mean, it makes it very welcoming. How long have Sphinx been in business?
Barely a year now.
Well, you were doing very well to secure such, you know, a place within such a short time. So you must have built a lot of confidence within with your clients.
Sure. I believe that it's a marketing aspect of it. We have been able to project ourselves to a stage where people will look out for us. We have a website. Our website is telling everybody what we do, the services we offer, and the people who are running the company. We have experts in valuation. We have experts in property transition. We have people who have run facility management. And buying and selling is what everybody wants to do, which we can do better than them.
Let me divert a little bit again and look at the property industry as a whole. You know, at one point it's booming, and then on the other side there's a shortage of houses. I don't know, you know, where do you draw the balance? But you in the business, where do you draw the balance?
There is what I would call a glut in high income property.
Okay.
In the sense that it needs a certain category of people to buy them. And that category of people is in a minority.
I see.
It's a working class environment who need houses to own, not to rent.
I see.
I wish that the huge amounts that people pay as rent advance is better put in as deposit towards owning those facilities. If you know what happens in this country, we have Shylock landlords wanting to grab 2 years, 3 years rent in advance, putting a strain on the poor workers' income.
Rent advance is one thing. What we're going to do is we're just going to have a look at like a typical property space-wise and see, you know, what it is like, and then eventually we need to really sit down and go into details about what it is that Sphinx is all about. So we'll take a little walk and have a look into some of the properties. Well, hello and welcome back. Now, because of the magic of filming or the magic of camera, we've already been to Fury Village, a property or facility which Sphinx Property Consultant manage. Now we are here at the Villaggio Estates, which also comes under their jurisdiction, if I may say. They look after properties here too. We are looking at this industry. You know, our way of living is changing. Now, once upon a time, you bought a piece of land, you walled it, you put a gate on it, and then you live in it. And then your neighbor came, he lived next door, and then another door, and then you all lived in the estate. But land is becoming scarce. So what are we doing now? A developer buys maybe an acre of land, puts up a high-rise building or lots of houses in there. Now, this same developer needs to move to another site to develop it. He can't keep coming back to see if these properties are sold or rented out or manicured. So the industry of property management is now also growing. Now, that's an industry where Sphinx is into. I mean, that's one side that they are into. But then I just need here to talk to them to find out, is this industry growing? Are Ghanaians in generally adapting to this way of living? Do we want to live in this commune? Have we all become Europeans or Americans where, we are managing space and time and everything? Or which is which? But then they are the experts. With me today, sat in this lush living room, is Larry. Larry is also one of the directors at Sphinx. Larry, I'm here to be educated. And I know this is your industry. And as I said in the preamble, that our way of living is changing. I mean, I look here and it's probably an acre and a half of land, and it's got maybe 100 people all living in there, well, comfortably. Whereas first we wouldn't have. So it made Sphinx, your industry is now growing. And I know I've asked you before, but I need you to stress out. So I build an estate like this, and then I call you and say, look, there's an estate here I built. You go and look after it for me. So what do? You move in with your team? And what would your team comprise to come and look after this?
Okay, we're talking about the aspect of facilities management here.
Okay.
There are three facets to facilities management. There is the first option where a client would want to employ a manager and technicians to manage the estate. The second is where a client would appoint a manager and outsource the servicing of the maintenance of the facility. The third is where the facility management is given out to a third party to manage. And this is where Sphinx has its interest.
Okay.
So Sphinx at Fury Village is managing as an external facility manager. Now, the facility management aspect will mainly depend on the contract that is signed between the manager and the client.
Okay.
So that you will find a place where, like Fury, where we have a contract to manage the external services and sell.
And sell.
And sell.
Okay.
But then that might not apply to all, because in the area of facility management, you're talking about areas where a particular landlord, a client, might not have the interest, might not have the know-how to manage the estate by himself. So he will need a professional to go in the field to manage it. Now, ideally, a facility manager would want to look at the facility even before it is developed, because he would want to advise the client on the efficiency of the development. For instance, we're no longer looking at a building as brick and mortar. We're looking at it as an investment. So any management of the facility should have investment undertones. So it happens that we are confronted with a situation where we are managing facilities that are already developed. So one thing we could do, and we do, is to advise our clients how efficiently can we organize the space that we have in order to bring in maximum returns, in order to make sure that the facility lasts long enough for you to recoup your capital that you have put in. So the aspect of property, of design and space management is one aspect that we'll look at.
Let me take you back to, let's say before I develop my property, because I've never thought of it like that. So what, then you work in close with the architects and say, it will be better this way, it will be easier this way?
Sure. The architect definitely is going to ask the client, what can I do for you? But might not be looking at it from the investment point of view.
Okay.
It's up to the property manager to say, look, I think that if we do it this way or that way, we could maybe ask the architect to reconsider his design to be able to recoup your capital faster. So we are talking about the economies over here, not the design factor. Yes. And then we look at the aspect of the lease terms, lease renewals, the rent, determination of the rent. How much is the landlord going to request from the tenants, proposed tenants? And how are we going to collect these rents? How are we going to make sure that we get credible clients who will not default and give us unnecessary disputes?
Let's start with the lease terms. So if you explain that to the layman, what does it mean?
Somebody could come in looking for property and he wants it on a short-term lease.
Okay.
Like right behind us, you could find somebody who might just be looking for a 6-month stay. Are we prepared? Will it be in the best interest of the client to let people come in for just 6 months and go? Or you want people who will come in for a long-term stay? Or people who will buy outright? These are the considerations that we want to take a look at.
Okay.
And then, having spent so much money on your investment, we'd also want to look at your maintenance schedule. How are you maintaining this property? Are repairs being done on time and when they ought to be done? Are maintenance aspects, plumbing, electricals, etc., are they being done on schedule? We have to get a prepared maintenance schedule so that the property does not fall to ruins sooner than we expect it to. Yes, and then we look at supervision of repairs. As facility managers, you would want to be the one to request that this thing needs repairs. Go and get the appropriate contractor who will be able to do it and supervise the work. That is part of the exercise.
Okay.
And then, having done all these things, you would want the client to know that this is what is happening to my property. This is what I ought to do. So the aspect of records keeping becomes paramount over here. And this is where we would keep records of everything that we do for the landlord to know where his money is going and how it is being spent. Yes. You will find out that in places like this condominium we have over here, there are places, and in many office blocks, there are places we call common areas.
Yeah.
Hallways, washrooms and things. And it is important that every tenant pays something, what you call a service charge. Yes. Some people might not want to pay. Others might pay. But it's up to you, the property manager, to ensure that those who have to pay. And that, disputes are avoided at all times. So you find out that one of the duties of a property manager is to avoid disputes. Not just avoiding them, but to settle them as soon as possible. Yes. And then we have the aspect we call support services. Support services will come into a contract where maybe the client will want you to do landscaping, would want you to do manage the security aspect of it, might even want you to consider health and safety regulations in the property. And then the most important thing, the fire aspect of it. It's important that as a facility manager, you are in constant touch with fire prevention measures. And this is part of the facility management's duty. I've spoken to people who manage estates, but one thing I find unique about you is that you sell and then you also rent. Yes.
So, which means it's like a one-stop shop. I think if I borrow your own words, so you have staff who are trained to rent and staff who are trained to sell, or? Yes, just like any other real estate firm, we will sell and we will rent. The difference between them and Sphinx
is that we have a website which has a huge array of property. And one thing we put everything on the website is that if we get a potential client, we don't want the client coming to tell us, oh, can I go and see this property? Can I go and see this property? Can I go and see this property? We tell the client, can you kindly go to the website and identify those property that will suit your requirements? Having shortlisted the property, then we will go in and say, okay, fine, this is it, this is it, this is it. And we are also sure that whatever property we want to rent or we want to sell, we have the landlord's consent in writing, and we have a copy of a valid title document, so that at no time will any client to Sphinx fall into any trouble with disputes over land or property. Likewise for letting. But Sphinx is different from the other real estate because we have added services. The added services is, one of them is the facility management I've just spoken about, and the fact that we offer valuation services as well. The team at Sphinx has got appraisers, professional valuers, who are prepared to value property, various interests of property, various kinds of property, and for various purposes. Some of the purposes for which we do valuation could be just rentals and sales. We always want to make sure that anybody who comes to Sphinx is assured that whatever value we tell him has been certified. Or on request, you could ask that we do a valuation for you, and we will do that for you. We would also undertake valuations for insurance purposes. In fact, we do encourage that people take care of their properties as an investment. And an investment means to say that you should cater for the unknown. So it's always good to have your property insured. To do so, you need a value. Sphinx will do that. Should the unfortunate arise and you need a replacement cost value for your property, Sphinx is there to assist you. For mortgage purposes, you want to go in for facility, you want to know how much your property would attract, loan you could get out of your property, security. Sphinx is there to assist you. And should the unfortunate also arise where your property, maybe as a result of some compulsory acquisition somewhere, a property falls victim and you need to be compensated, Sphinx is there to also assist you. Yes. So we do those valuation services. But the essence of it all is that we do not want any conflict between, oh, this thing is too high, price is too high. Let us just certify. Okay. Now, one thing we do, which real estate firms, in fact, so far as I've been in this business, I've not seen any real estate firm handle taxation.
Yes.
Taxation by itself is a difficult area to venture into, admittedly. But we also take cognizance of the fact that not many people know that in handling property, there are various taxes that arise out of each transaction. Each transaction you do. There are taxes that are payable to the Ghana Revenue Authority. There are levies and statutory fees that we pay to other institutions, like the Lands Commission, Town Planning, blah, blah, blah. But let me concentrate on what you pay to the Ghana Revenue Authority. Because they are those who will jump on you if you do not pay their taxes.
Because, it's one area that I don't hear very much. I hear of houses being sold and rented, but as far as taxes going to, the revenue, it's a bit silent. So I'm interested in that area.
That is an unfortunate part of it all, you see, because the property market is not developed. And transactions happen in a very informal way. So you find out that very few transactions are recorded accurately. So it's also difficult for the taxman to also
find out.
But it behoves on you to know your responsibilities, where you have to pay, what you have to pay, and to ensure that that payment is made. Let me educate you a bit on this. There are various types of taxes that pertain to various aspects of the land transaction.
Okay.
Assuming that you are going to acquire property. In acquiring property, you need to document it. There is a tax which we call stamp duty.
Yeah.
That is a tax not on the transaction, but it's a tax on the document. On the document you are going to register. In fact, the law requires that before you register any document in the deeds registry, you have to have it stamped. There's no fixed rate of duty for stamp duty.
Is it a percentage or?
It varies depending on the transaction that is recorded on the document. So that if it's a sale, an outright sale, or an assignment, it could attract a separate rate from if, assuming it was a lease, or a statutory declaration, or a vesting assent, which is not liable. So stamp duty is not a fixed rate, but it's a tax that you pay on the document. In fact, indeed, if you want a document to be registered, then you ought to have it stamped.
So in that case, what they look at the property and say, okay, this is 100,000, therefore pay this. This is 1 million, therefore pay this, or
I have already said.
Before you answer that, let me just take a quick break. But I just need to find out how this stamp duty works, as to a percentage on the value of the house you're buying, or there's a set fee that goes up after the price bracket goes on. Stay tuned, because you know what, you probably there haven't paid your taxes yet. We'll be straight back. Well, welcome back. We're still here in this lush apartment, talking to Larry, director of Sphinx Property Consult. But just before we went on the break, I just wanted to find out, the taxation, the stamp duty. It's a funny thing, like we all know it's there, but we don't seem to quite talk about it. We're not quite educated about it. Larry, you were just telling me, and it's a very important area, that if you sell a property or you're renting a property, that you give what is due Caesar, Caesar, and what is due Christ.
Yes.
And how does it work?
Yes, I did mention that stamp duty is payable on the document. Mm-hmm. Now, the reason why stamping is important is that it gives it legal effect.
Okay.
Legal effect in the sense that no document will be accepted in any court of law unless it is stamped. Mm-hmm. And no document will be registered in any deeds registry in this country unless it is stamped. So that is the importance of stamping. It's something that you cannot avoid. It's one tax that you cannot avoid if you want valid documentation to land. And I did mention that there's no fixed rate for stamp duty. It depends on, for a sale or an assignment, as the document will read, it depends on the value that is put on the document.
Okay.
But we do accept that in this country, transactions are not properly recorded. Mm-hmm. And indeed, to avoid paying huge stamp duty, a lot of people underdeclare what they put on their documents.
Okay.
In fact, the Lands Department, things will not encourage that in a way. We want to report everything accurately. Mm-hmm. But the Land Valuation Board or the Lands Commission, they would also not accept just any value that you put on the document. They would want to ascertain their own values to assess you to that tax. Yes.
Okay.
So this is something on stamp duty.
Another thing that you mentioned, sorry Sebastian, it was the fact that you have your website and you have all your properties displayed on there. So if I came and I wanted maybe a 3-bedroom apartment, I go onto your website and then see how many 3-bedroom apartments you have, and then call you and say, I want to see the one at the airport, the one at Kaneshie, the one at Dansoman. But, Ghanaians are used to, you hop in your car and you drive from one area and then you look for this signboard that says 2-bedroom here, and then you call some unregulated gentleman to take you to some unregulated house, and then, one thing leads to the other. Are we getting used to this orderliness where I come to an office, all professional, everything on the website, and, are we getting used to that?
Indeed, we have had a lot of messages coming from people on our website, because we have a contact us page where people who want more information come and listen. It is on record that about 85% of property sales and landed property transactions originate from the internet. Yes, that is how much people are aware that they have to go online to go to seek for this. Because you're not just going to be driving around town looking, are they selling this house, are they selling this house, are they selling this house? You have to go where you can get the information from. Mm-hmm. And we are pleased to announce that at www.sphinxpc.com,
we get a lot of hits daily. Now, when we get a client, what we want to ensure is that we have the full particulars of the client. We're not going to be dealing with clients who maybe want to take us for a ride or are not serious. We would request that you register your particulars with us so that in the event that we are unable to meet your requirements from our list of properties, whenever we get anything that we know would suit your requirements, we refer back to you.
It's something that you know when you travel outside of Ghana, most agents do this sort of thing, and I'm surprised that it is now taking up here, considering that we all have housing needs and we all need to sell our houses. I'm surprised it's now taking shape, and well, kudos to you for taking the opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. I would not be surprised because the IT industry is growing. I mean, a lot of people are now becoming IT aware. They are aware of internet, what the facilities they can get from the internet. And so, definitely, I believe that, that is the right way to go, and things would encourage it. We do a lot of things online, and we would encourage the people, encourage this. But, Nana, before we listen, I did not quite complete the issue on taxation.
Of course.
Yes, because I think that it's important that the general public gets to know that, these are important to do. I mentioned that there are certain taxes that you pay when you acquire property, out of which stamp duty was one. Mm-hmm. In fact, it's one, because that's a tax on documents. There's another one, which you call gift tax.
Okay.
Gift tax is levied on the donee of property. Of course, not all property attracts gift tax. If I give you a gift of a handkerchief, it will not attract any tax. But if I give you a gift of landed property, it attracts gift tax.
So I need to pay tax on the...
Yes, the person who receives the gift is the person who pays the tax. You see. So this is another tax that comes in the acquisition side. Now, whilst you are holding on to the property, for instance, somebody who is enjoying occupancy might not be paying taxes to the Ghana Revenue Authority, mm-hmm. but the owner of property, somebody who has rented his property to, let's see, a landlord, is obliged to pay tax on his rent income. And in fact, it behoves on anybody, apart from an individual, mm-hmm. anybody who is paying rent tax ought to withhold 8% of the rent that he's paying and pay same to the Ghana Revenue Authority on behalf of the landlord. Or I request the landlord to go and pay his rent tax. Sphinx, we encourage that everybody should be law-abiding. Everybody should pay his taxes when they are due and on time. So we do advise our clients.
Let me get this point right. So I rent your house, and I'm paying you, let's say, 100 cedis. I need to take 8 cedis out of the 100 cedis to pay, taxes to the state.
Yes, but of course, I have already mentioned that the tax cannot be withheld by an individual. Mm-hmm. Companies and firms are obliged to withhold 8% of the tax that they pay and pay same to the Ghana Revenue Authority and issue a tax credit certificate to the landlord that have gone to pay your tax on your behalf. Yes, so that is that withholding tax aspect of it. Yes. Now,
can you imagine your landlord turns up, right, at the end of the month expecting his 100 cedis? Well, I've probably paid the taxes out of it. I'm not giving you the whole 100 cedis. Go and see the Inland Revenue. I mean, that's going to be...
it's good. It's good for the nation. Because this is a tax which hitherto has been left unattended to. And I believe that, if such revenue comes to the state, we'll be moving forward.
Well, I guess so. And I think all tenants should start a nice revolution now when your landlord comes and look, you have to pay your taxes, and I've done that on your behalf. So There you go. That's the rest of your... How do you get your clients? I mean, especially the ones that bring like big projects to say, I want you to manage it. Do you drive around and say, well, that's a property, let me find out who's developing it? Or do they find you on the internet and come and go? How do you find them?
They go on the internet. They go on the internet. And apart from going on the internet, one thing that we pride ourselves with is the referrals that we get from other people.
Okay.
Oh, have you tried Sphinx? Those guys, maybe they could be of assistance. And I'm pleased to say we have not disappointed. It's a relatively young firm, but we are making inroads, and I believe that with time, people will get to do what we are trying to do as well.
Are you looking into going into owning properties, or you're more the one of managing and selling, renting it?
At the moment, we want to walk before we run.
Okay.
Yes, we are not... See, every aspect of the real estate industry is a specialized area.
Mm-hmm.
We believe that we have not gotten to the stage where we can develop. To do so, you ought to get land. Land is your main raw material. You need to get land. You also need to get capital. Mm-hmm. You also need to do things in such a way that you can sell your property. We believe that we will start off with where we have started, and we'll, maybe if the people who develop want our services to market their buildings for them, we will do that. And in fact, we have about 3 or 4 of these real estate developers who have sought assistance from Sphinx to market. I spoke about land being a major resource for these real estate developers. Not too happy with the spate of development of Accra.
Yeah.
Between Accra and Winneba, you hardly find any tree. No, it's full of concrete. Between Accra and Aburi, likewise, the foothills are now being developed by real estate developers. Between Accra and Dodoa, everywhere is now concrete, no tree. So, I would encourage people, real estate developers, not to deplete our forest reserves, not to spoil the areas where we could use for market gardening, for grazing, cattle grazing and all that, developing single bungalows for people to buy. What is this? It could go into high-rise development. If you look behind me, you mentioned it's just over an acre of land. So many people are living in here. This is what I would encourage the real estate developers to be thinking of doing. Yes. True, this comes at some cost. True that the Ghanaian, as a person, as a family, find it a bit difficult living in high-rise apartments because of our habits, like fufu pounding and things. What this is. But
communal fufu pounding area.
That could arise. In fact, I know a place like Redco where fufu is pounded on the landings. But the noise levels and all that. Should you wake up in the morning to hear people beating fufu and all that? I don't think that is acceptable.
Well, I mean, I think the powder fufu is in vogue now, and everybody should go to the powder. But one thing, Larry, that amazes me is, you find the high-end properties booming, and then the low-end properties, for the $10,000 probably dollar. I don't even know if you can call that low-end, but 1 bedroom, 1 chamber for the ordinary guy. There's 1 million. Apparently, there are 1 million houses, deficit as a nation, and then the high-end ones seem to be booming. I don't know if you have any answers, but I don't know why is it.
Sure. The problem is that with the high-end, what you call the high-end properties, it takes somebody with a big pocket to buy them. So you find out that these properties stay on your website for much longer period because you have not been able. There's a choice to be made by these people. Every property is that high, so they also want to make sure that what they are using their money to buy
is just right.
Yes. Whereas on the other hand, demand and supply factors. No, the buildings are hot. Even before they are finished, they are rented. You see the thing? Yes. So it's a demand and supply factor that comes in here. Where I see the problem is in the middle income bracket. These are gentlemen, ladies, white-collar jobs, who want a place to live. And they are confronted with landlords who charge exorbitant rents. Pay 2 years in advance, pay 3 years in advance. Money that they could otherwise have used as a deposit to own the houses that's their business. This is where the deficit you are talking arises. That middle bracket. Because for the lower end properties, it goes as and when it comes.
I see.
But the high income will stay.
The problem you mentioned there, in the property industry, another one is the deposit. We want 2-year deposit, we want 3-year deposit, and we are all stuck, even though we know that the law doesn't allow that. But, what do you do? I mean, he's the only one with the house and you want it.
Yes, you have mentioned a very interesting word, the deposit. But actually, what the landlords require is advance.
Yes.
Rent payment in advance. I will tell you why I say the word.
Okay.
The deposit is very interesting. Now, this is not a lawful thing to do. Landlord and tenants issues are regulated by law. They are regulated by the Rent Act. Regulated by the Rent Act, which stipulates that you're not supposed to collect more than 6 months' rent in advance. But like I'm saying, if you can't pay more, then leave my property for me. Somebody will come and pay it. So there are various, apart from the Rent Act, regulating the landlord and tenant issues. Between landlord and tenant, you have tenancy agreements that you have to follow. So if you sign an agreement with a landlord and say that, I'm prepared to pay 2 years rent in advance, then you ought to follow the terms of the agreement.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I'm sure that in most agreements, they also have rent renewal clauses that come with an increment in rent.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. The issue is, should that be the case? Especially so when in this country, prices are pegged in dollars. Do you also want an increment? When inflation takes care of the dollar rate? Yes, you see? So, this is how I would...
And the other thing is...
But I spoke, excuse me, I will not cut you in. I mentioned that the word deposit was quite an interesting word to this. I would prefer a situation where rather than pay 2 years rent in advance, a landlord will tell a tenant, pay a security deposit. This deposit is not going to be kept by the landlord. It's not going to be kept by the tenant. It's going to be kept by an independent person. Most often when you have an agent, real estate agent, it's the agent who keeps this deposit. Now, the reason why this is important, and which I would want to encourage in this country, is because when a landlord gives a tenant property, he gives it to him in a tenantable manner. When I say tenantable, in a manner that will let him enjoy it without any problems, with leakages, broken windows, that kind of thing. Now, at the end of the tenancy, the landlord would expect that the tenant will give him back the property in the same way as he obtained it. The essence of this security deposit, in the event that the tenancy comes to an end, and the tenant is unable to effect those repairs that would put the property back in its original form, then money is taken from that security deposit. And the repairs made therefrom. Whatever balance remains is given back to the tenant. Take your thing. It doesn't belong to anybody. It's yours.
Before we go, I know demand and supply would affect prices, but sometimes within our prime areas, obviously it's prime, so the prices will be prime. But the prices are really, really, really prime for, this side of the world. I mean, I'm sure you've noticed because you're in the industry.
Sure, I've noticed, but like you rightly said, prices are determined mostly by demand and supply. That's the economic factor that will determine how prices will go, demand and supply. If supply exceeds the demand, there's going to be lower rent or lower cost price. The contrary. Yes, indeed, prices are high. And they're not high mainly because of demand exceeding supply, but then the cost of building is also high. And it's not like it's going to be reducing or anything, but it keeps on rising. To the rising cost of building It's a major determinant in the price.
So what's next for Sphinx? The next 2-3 years, where are we going to see Sphinx and your contribution to the real estate?
Sphinx is on its way up. We are going to be encouraging everything that I mentioned. We're going to make sure that the facility management aspect of our duty is professionally done. Not somebody who is looking for work to do. Say, I learned that facility management or being an estate agent is lucrative. No, it should be handled by professionals. And we would want to advocate for the inclusion of professionals. We don't stop anybody from doing real estate duties, but include professionals who will guide the profession, who will make sure that the profession is running alongside ethics that are important to the business. You see, so I would want to see Sphinx being a member of a professional grouping that will recognize the role of the estate agent. And in fact, I am indeed. Well, I must mention that the Ghana Institution of Surveyors has for some time now had on its drawing board some law that will regulate the activities of estate agents. Estate agents have come into the books not for very good reasons of late, and this is what we would want to discourage. Ideally, we wouldn't want to see people driving down the roads and seeing signboards, 2 bedrooms for sale, 2 bedrooms. That's what we want to do. Everybody should be like Sphinx.
Well, thank you very much, Larry. You see, one of the most expensive things that you would ever acquire in your life is a property next to a car. And the last thing you want to do is deal with a cowboy when you're going to buy a property or even rent it. So it is good enough if you can go to a regulated or an orderly industry or company so that you don't get your fingers bitten. You know, I was talking to Larry. Larry is the director of Sphinx. My name is Nana Sakwao, and thank you very much for watching Corporate Wednesday PM Express. You know what? Tomorrow we'll be back to do it all over again.